Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hard Things Podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess, and this is episode 31. This is number 3 of a series I'm currently doing on health, supplementation, things you can do to improve your life, things that helped me lose over 80 pounds and be a more resilient human. So to quick review, the first episode was related to the root chakra, the adrenal glands. I talked about grounding, talked about tea, and specifically kratom. And I talked about my favorite multivitamin from Thorne. So those are areas that are quickly and easily executed on. For that, on the adrenals, kind of also tied into the adrenals is the sacral chakra. The reproductive glands are kind of involved with that. To balance those, I found that sleeping, sensory deprivation, float tanks, and probiotics have been the most beneficial. So that's the last 2 weeks we covered. This week, we're going to move up the spine. You're going to notice a trend. As we move through these chakras, the energy centers of the body, as known by the yogic systems of the Eastern world, the Western world has discovered all of our different glands and such in the body that create hormones and regulate various functions through your brain. And this week is once again kind of like the first week. Grounding and tea, and like it's pretty simple stuff. Multivitamin, it's easy to understand. Our body needs nutrients. You put them in, you get good things out. In this case, like I said, this week is not really any different. One thing I've done a ton of to kind of help the healing process from my different injuries and just the trauma and stress of living. I am a big proponent of fasting. I think fasting really gets a bad rap. People think of starvation. They think of not being able to feed themselves. It kind of has a negative connotation, but I'll tell you, after a nearly 48-hour fast, I don't think I've ever felt better. There's a kind of a cascade of both stress hormones and kind of beneficial cleaning of your body that happens when you fast. And it can feel pretty bad. Your thoughts a lot of times dictate how the fast goes. If you know that like, hey, I'm only doing this for a short time, I'm going to be okay. You're not actually food insecure. Basically you have a choice and you're actively choosing just to not eat because, it's for a purpose. You're cleansing your body. You're trying to kind of unclog the filter, as I like to talk about it. You can actually go into it with a great attitude, and then that first meal after fasting actually kind of makes you sick a little bit. So it almost has to be really small and something really easy to eat. But then when you do have that first, like genuine, like I'll have something like a steak or sushi or something that I really love when I come back to eating, and man, it hits a little bit different. Can't lie. So fasting is one thing you could do. Just don't put anything in your mouth. Just breathe. You can use oxygen for fuel. So fasting, it's not against the law. It's not going to kill you unless you do it for several weeks. So don't do that. Definitely eat food. But yeah, I feel like any side effects that I have negative from fasting are from I'm either missing a nutrient that's potentially not related to protein, carbs, and fats, the macronutrients that have caloric quality to them. It's usually a vitamin or mineral, which if you're taking the multivitamin, it's going to help you a ton when you're fasting because your body's going to have what it needs to do its thing, especially using oxygen for fuel. And you're going to have energy, you're going to feel good, you're going to be able to use your body fat that exists. and it'll improve your body composition. Working out fasted as well seems to really help me a lot. I feel really great. Your blood flows super smooth, delivers the oxygen for fuel. Again, I don't recommend just training fasted all the time. You don't have to do that. Using glucose, sugar for fuel is also really good. But I think a lot of us these days are a little bit overfed, kind of in a calorie surplus, and you really don't realize what you're missing when you're full of food and your filter's clogged and maybe a little bit insulin resistant. So that's what we're going to get into here just a little bit. So on a light note, when you eat food, there's several things that happen. Your body breaks down protein, carbohydrates, and fat, especially when you break down carbohydrates. If you're healthy, your body, aka your pancreas, this is the gland associated with the solar plexus. It releases a hormone called insulin, which helps direct traffic. It takes this glucose, the sugars in your blood, and it directs them to cells for use, or directs them to the liver or fat cells to be stored. I'm not going to get into the whole process because that could be a whole several hour lecture, as I've found out in biochemistry in school. But really, that's a huge problem in terms of health, is when this system of regulating glucose in your blood sugar, goes down the drain. So when insulin gets out of whack, you've all heard of like type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is just like kind of a natural form when insulin, your pancreas struggles to create enough insulin for your body becomes acidic, you get in trouble. So type 1 diabetics have to use insulin exogenously to make up for that and make sure they stay alive. And I remember growing up, we did have a young kid in my grade that had insulin, or had diabetes 1, and he ended up passing away because he didn't have enough insulin on a school trip. So really, really sad stuff, but super manageable. One thing that you're going to have problems with is type 2 diabetes in some case. So there's type 2 diabetes is kind of self-induced through diet or other reasons, lack of exercise. It's kind of a whole chain of events that happens, but those people kind of not choosing to have diabetes, but several choices led to them having diabetes. They use a lot of insulin, makes it more expensive for the type 1 people who have really no control over it. So it's definitely a bit of an epidemic, kind of out of control in my perspective, but perhaps the most concerning of all of it, something I'm really concerned with, is the brain. So some people call type 3 diabetes, they call Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes or dementia. These different disorders of the brain that basically sugars and plaques build up in your brain, and because the blood is not flowing as readily as it would maybe when you're fasting, or if you're on a keto diet, you're using ketones for fuel in your brain, basically your brain stops working properly. Different parts of it will atrophy, and you'll start to forget things. You won't be able to take care of yourself. You won't be able to really do much of anything over time. And these diseases are very sad. My family has been affected by it. My grandfather had Alzheimer's disease, and seeing how someone can go from a fully functioning adult to someone who is just really struggling with their executive function, I think is a huge concern. All three types of diabetes are huge concerns, and really just a sign of this dysregulated insulin. So again, I'm going to go back to fasting, but fasting is a great way to get your insulin under control if you're healthy, or if you're type 2 diabetic and you want to reverse type 2 diabetes and have a chance to get everything under control. fasting is a good way. Periodic fasting is a good way to help your body reset. And then when you do eat, make sure to eat, high protein, low glycemic index foods so you don't spike your insulin and kind of ruin that system again. And honestly, it doesn't take too long. For me, it usually is about a month or 2 months if I'm out of control. And then over time, you can start to incorporate other foods back in, foods that you like, pizza, sushi, all the things that I definitely like. But it's important to get the insulin system under control first and then be able to respond to those different food challenges as they come. And you might be saying, okay, well, fasting seems pretty extreme. And you're right, it is. I probably fast like 3 to 5 days out of a 30-day month, which isn't very much. I have fasted more. I will fast more, like up to 10 days a month when I feel like my insulin is not working properly. Whenever I'm having trouble with that, or I get a blood test and I have high triglycerides, or someone says I have high blood pressure, if I go to the chiropractor and they check it, I'll just fast. It's a reset. It's a great reset, but all the time, not always an option. You got to eat if you have a stressful job, if you have exercise that you need to do, if you're competing in something, you can't just fast all the time. So one thing that happened for me was I learned how to count macros a while back. I learned how to basically reverse engineer exactly how many calories I'm burning per day by being super consistent with my diet and tracking everything. And a lot of people say it sounds like a pain in the ass. This is also something I don't think is completely necessary all of the time, but I think if you're in trouble, if you're unhealthy, if you're feeling sick, you're having problems related to insulin, it's a very small price to pay. And the price to pay specifically is about $9.99 a month. I use the Carbon app. That was developed by a gentleman named Lane Norton. He is the real deal, very strong power lifter, and also heavily in control of his body and the hormones and chemicals that run it. So I have a lot of respect for him, and his app is basically, worth the work that his app does is worth thousands of dollars. It's basically a legit health coach for $10 a month. And by health, I mean telling you the exact macros you need to eat. If you follow it to a T, your body is going to, you'll basically be able to know exactly your calorie intake on average every week. Every 7 days, you'll know, okay, I'm burning 3,200 calories a day, for example. And you can see over time how different levels of intake influence your metabolism. So you can kind of grab the bull by the horns, so to speak, understand where your metabolism's at. And to be honest, what it did for me too is I used maintenance calories and reverse dieting to get my calories up to like 4,000, and the point where I was eating 4,000 calories a day and not gaining any weight, which for like the first time in my life, I was eating whatever I wanted guilt-free and just tracking it, and wake up, weigh the same. And it was like the most control I've ever had over my diet. I will say I'm not eating that much food right now and not gaining weight. I'm definitely personally having trouble with my metabolism because I am aiming down. I'm in a kind of a cut phase. So it's important to notice that, like, say you're in really big trouble diet-wise, you might be eating at maintenance or above, 6 to 8 months out of the year. You might only be cutting or trying to lose weight for like 4 months, but you'll make more progress than if you yo-yo. I can promise you that. So that's a little bit about my experience with macros. Definitely look into it. Carbon app. If you sign up, do maintenance for like 2 months, and then try a light cut. Go into a slight calorie deficit. You're going to feel amazing. It's like fasting, but you're not. You're still eating. You're just eating less than you're intaking, and you're going to see your body change. It's really cool. Okay, last but not least, going to be about a 20-minute episode. Very proud of myself. In the last 5 minutes here, we're going to talk about a compound called inositol. So this is a studied supplement, once again. Just like the multivitamin and probiotics, inositol is something that I've been taking to support my blood sugar levels and quite frankly support my brain and other nerve cells in my body. So it kind of has a double benefit. So inositol has been called vitamin B8, I believe, is the kind of misnomer, because it's not actually a vitamin. It's a hormone. And not only that, it's a sugar and a component of our cell membranes in our body. So cell membranes are how a lot of processes happen. It's how we make energy, how we maintain everything. I could list off hundreds of things that it does. But obviously when you don't have inositol, you're not consuming enough, it becomes a huge problem. One thing inositol does as a sugar is it interacts with insulin in a positive way. So what scientists have seen that it does is it helps with the metabolic syndrome, the issues with insulin. It helps with polycystic ovary syndrome, which is a problem that women have. They get cysts in their ovaries, and it can affect their fertility, it can affect their hormone cycle. So again, kind of harkening back to last week, this kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with that. It reduces the risk of gestational diabetes and preterm birth. So again, with the reproductive cycle, it's one big problem is a lot of times you get pregnant, you can't exercise as much as you used to, you're eating more than you ever have because you're 3D printing a human, and you can get some pretty negative effects from that. So a little bit of exercise and a little inositol, a little extra of this specific type of sugar hormone can go a long way. And then so health of the insulin system also influences your fat metabolism, helps lower high cholesterol. And as a result too, I think, again, going back to last week talking about probiotics in the gut, I think a lot of these reactions happen inside the gut, and it ultimately is beneficial when your gut writes back to your brain through your vagus nerve. It can help relieve symptoms of depression and other mood disorders. So these, again, has been studied by scientists, and there's a lot of really great and exciting effects. I personally I've taken this in the past. I started taking it when I worked at Thorne because there was a product called Ovarian Care. It was really aimed at women that have this PCOS, the polycystic ovary syndrome. And I started taking it myself because honestly I had problems with blood sugar. It's a little, always been a little chubby. And the inositol and all the other ingredients in it, nothing's going to hurt me. So because I had free products that I would get from my employer, I ordered it. And so here's a guy taking Ovarian Care, and it was really beneficial. I think just improving the way insulin responds in your body, especially someone like me who lifts weights. Insulin is huge when it comes to building muscle as well. So using fuel from fats and sugars and carbs at large to power the anabolic process of rebuilding muscle that you break down, it's a really delicate balance. If you eat too much, you'll gain muscle and fat. If you eat too little, you won't gain any muscle or get stronger. So again, inositol is good for many reasons. And again, I actually didn't even mention the nervous system benefit, but again, the cell membranes of nerve cells really need inositol. It's one of the components of it. So it helps to repair those cells, and signals will travel faster in your body. You'll be able to react quicker, think quicker on your feet, all that good stuff. And again, the supplement's none of these supplements are like a, end all be all, like one and done supplement. It's just something that if your body is chronically low on it, you're going to be having some side effects of some type. And if you supplement this and you feel better, it's probably good for you. And again, it is studied. So, where was I going with the inositol? Basically, I'll end on this. We're going to get out of here. If you're able to track your food and be in control of when you're in a calorie surplus and in a calorie deficit, like I said, it's a delicate balance. But when I'm really on top of it, there's probably nothing more powerful than having complete control of your diet, sleeping really well, and, of course, grounding, being out in nature. Like those things, all in concert, if you do nothing else, you're going to feel pretty good. And the next 4 weeks are going to be things that I believe are, just as important, but are also maybe more expensive. Even the kind of sensory deprivation tank can be more expensive. It's not something that's 100% necessary. But by the end of these episodes, I'm going to give you 7 kind of scenarios to support these 7 different glands and different, systems of the body. If you're able to ever put all 7 together, that's nearly a superhuman person. I've been close at times. I've done 5 or 6. 7 all at once is very difficult. But it's something that I definitely strive for. And I'll get as close to 5 or 6 as I can. Someday would love to just do all 7 and record what happens, because it's going to be crazy. But with that, once again, fasting, not as bad for you as you might think. You actually feel pretty good after you get over that initial hunger. Counting macros, not as hard as you think, and definitely way more rewarding than you might have thought possible. And inositol. Honestly, if you just get a month's supply and try it out, who knows what can happen. You can find it on Amazon. There's some decent supplement sources there. Use reputable companies. If you really want to, Thorne's Ovarian Care, you can make it work. Especially if you're a lady, it's got a lot of great supportive things. If you're a dude, don't be scared. Get in there. Do the ovarian care. You got ovaries too. They just turned into testes. Don't be weird about it. But with that, I'm going to check out. I have a lecture coming up soon. I hope y'all have a great weekend, and I will see you next week for talk about the heart and the immune system. Until then, see you later.